Well, the final UFC 196 pre-fight press conference just wrapped up, and it certainly came as advertised. Conor McGregor and Nathan Diaz had their face-off, and then it got really heated. Conor McGregor slapped Nathan Diaz's hand away. A melee ensued, a kerfuffle ensued, but credit to Las Vegas's finest and some of the UFC security guards. They squashed that one before it got really ugly. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more right here on our post-press conference reaction video. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ariel Helwani in Las Vegas. That is our own Marc Raimondi. Marc, you were there. You took it all in. What'd you make of the scuffle, if you will?
McGregor's press conferences are so important that we need to have a reaction video just to the press conference. I think that it's fight promotion. Was that it wasn't a Stockton slap? It was a, would you say it was a Dublin slap that McGregor used?
You can run with that.
In the face-off Dublin slap. You can hashtag that. I mean, yeah, it's fight promotion. I don't even think these guys don't dislike each other. I think that Conor actually respects Nate a lot, but he likes money a lot more. And I think what just happened not far from us probably added a few 100,000 pay-per-view buys onto Saturday's card. So why not?
So you're poo-pooing that whole thing. You think that was all fabricated heat. There's no bad blood there. There's nothing to see here, essentially.
I don't think Conor has anything against Nate Diaz personally at all. I don't think there's any bad blood. There's no history. There's no bad blood. It's just fight promotion. I think Conor is doing all that to build up the fight. I do think that Nate and Nick and those guys do take some of that stuff personally, and they're not really about. They like to promote fights, but they take this stuff personally. They take it very seriously. It's a pride thing. Conor's just kind of promoting the fight. Do I think that Nate was pissed when Conor did that? Hell yeah, he was pissed. But you know, Conor's just trying to stir the pot. He's trying to do his thing.
Should McGregor be reprimanded for doing that? He did touch his opponent in a pretty physical way 24 hours before the weigh-ins.
Yeah, I mean, reprimanded. I don't think there's going to be a fine or anything. Maybe he'll get a call from Bob Bennett, the executive director of the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Maybe not. I don't know. He did touch his opponent. There was a physical act there, but it wasn't a fight. I mean, it was a little bit of a scuffle. It got separated pretty quickly. There was no other contact between those two guys other than that slap. So I mean, it's not a big deal. I think everyone knows what was going on. It certainly wasn't John Jones against Daniel Cormier, where poor PR man got thrown into a backdrop, and there was shoes thrown, and then there was punches thrown. There wasn't anything like that, so I think they'll be fine. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Well, I'm really happy that you brought that up because I think the UFC learned a valuable lesson from that scuffle between John Jones and Daniel Cormier. Yes, at the end of the day, they maybe won't admit it, but they capitalize off of all this. This is all very good promotion, as you noted, but let's call it like we see it. They had a lot of security guard there. Even some executive types jumped in. They did not want this to get worse. I think maybe deep down they're pretty content with how it went. But they did a fantastic job of. It was almost like a football drill. You saw everyone like cover a man and pick out a man. Members of the Diaz camp were there. Members of the McGregor camp were there as well. But they did a fantastic job of really sort of squashing this before it became a real thing. Would you agree?
Yeah, because I think that they did want a little bit of it. They wanted a little bit of a confrontation, but they didn't want to get to the point where the guys were actually fighting each other and the fight was gonna drop out. Because if there's actually a physical fight on stage at the MGM Grand 2 days before the fight, that fight's not going to happen. I mean, as big as the fight is, the commission's not going to let that happen. It's just going to get a lot of bad press. This is harmless for the most part, I think. I'm sure there's going to be some mainstream outlets saying, oh, what is this stuff? It's the UFC. It's a black guy. And it's not a black guy. It's the fight game. This stuff happens at boxing events, at press conferences, at weigh-ins. I feel like every week. It's not that big of a deal. It's gonna add more pay-per-view buys. The video is going viral as we speak right now. It's all gonna be fine. Everyone's gonna be happy on Saturday.
Another fine point, because this really does feel like a boxing scene, doesn't it? A UFC press conference typically is a lot more buttoned up, or the fight week, if you will. Mm-hmm. The boxing fight weeks always feel a little more like the Wild West, and perhaps it's because the fighters have a lot more to do with the promotion. But even at the press conference last week in Torrance, no backdrop, you had the security guards there, and today with this, it all kind of feels, and maybe that's just speaking to the power of Conor and how big he is, and to a degree as well Nate Diaz. But it does feel like even the press conference, it felt different. This all feels different, and different in a good way,
Right.
in a unique way, in a fun way. And as long as nothing bad happened, I think that everything's all well and good, and this will get them a lot more attention. And as you mentioned, a few 100,000 more pay-per-view buys. Now, what do you think of the actual press conference? Because you were there last week in Torrance, you were there today. Any difference in demeanors, in answers, in what they brought to the table? Did you notice a shift between last week and this week?
Yeah, Conor is kind of raising the trash talk bar a little bit higher. Last week in Torrance, he needled, and even at open workouts yesterday, it wasn't a face-to-face thing with him and Nate, but the stuff that Conor was saying to reporters was he heightened the trash talk. He talked about he thinks that Nate Diaz is being a scared little brother, and he's saying that and today he started saying he's passing on the limelight, and he started saying stuff like that. So I think that as the fight increases, as the fight gets closer, I should say, Conor amps up the trash talk, and he has a little bit of that physical thing too. And I don't. A lot of it is fight promotion, but I think he also wants to see how Nate Diaz responds. Conor's the kind of guy that recognizes everything. He even said during the press conference today that he noticed that Nate is a little bit heavier on his left leg. It's a tell that I guess Conor noticed maybe during the open workout. This guy, like, nothing gets by him. Like, he sees everything. So I think a little bit of it is that as well. It's promotion, but it's also some gamesmanship, and it's also looking to see how does Nate respond to certain things that he does. Remember Conor said with Aldo, he noticed him. He did something at the press conference at the weigh-in face-off. He made a little move to see if Aldo flinched, and Aldo flinched, and then he went and knocked him out in 13 seconds because he noticed that kind of response. So everything that this guy does is 100% calculated. It's already thought out, and so far, I mean, he's played everybody, including Nate and all of us, because we're doing this video, like a musical instrument.
Well, that backs up my question about his new haircut, because I was told from members of his team that there's a reason for the new haircut, that this harkens back to the old Conor McGregor, to the Conor McGregor who was hungrier than ever, that was climbing the ranks, and then he completely no-sells me here on that one. Conor McGregor, as you mentioned, is a calculated man. He does everything with a purpose, and don't be fooled by that answer. I maintain it was a very solid question and a different question. That's all I'm going to say.
So you just set up this entire thing just to defend yourself from
Absolutely not. Now, let's talk about the fact that Nate didn't bring up the steroid stuff again. It felt... See, I think one interesting thing about Nate Diaz is that people often confuse him with his brother Nick. Mm-hmm. Nick is the guy who thrives in the press conferences. Yeah. This was Nate Diaz's first pay-per-view main event press conference. He's never main evented a UFC pay-per-view before. This is all very new to him, and this is not really the kind of scene that he thrives. Is he holding his own in your opinion, or do you feel like Conor is getting the better of him each and every time they do this?
It's hard to get the better of Conor in those situations. Yeah. He's so quick and he's so fast.
Well, I'm asking, is Conor getting the better of him? You know what I mean? Like, is Nate even playing the game like you thought he would, or is he losing points as this thing goes along?
I don't know if he's losing points because at the end of the day, the check's going to be the same, and I don't think that anything that's happening today and at these press events is really going to affect the fight in any way.
You don't think it affects his mindset?
No, I don't think so. I think
think he gets them riled up. It doesn't have them stewing. They're doing satellite media interviews right now, and there are 6 police officers standing outside, and that's as they say in the business, a shoot. That's not being publicized. So there's definitely some animosity there. You're doing your best to poo-poo it, but I think that this is real.
Well, real in what sense?
They don't like each other, and if they pull back the reins, something would have happened, something worse.
They don't like each other in the extent that Nate is not a fan of the stuff that Conor is doing right now, and he didn't like what happened today. I mean, Nate was even asked yesterday about some of the stuff that Conor said at last week's press conference, and Cholo gangster, and some shitstar reporter asked him about that. I don't want to mention any names, but Nate said it was fine. He's saying what he has to say, and Nate even said that he likes what Conor does as far as fight promotion. He said that I've been saying. Nate said I was saying the same things for years, and Conor's doing it now, and more light is getting shed on it. Nate doesn't have anything personal against Conor. However,
couldn't disagree more with you. Keep going though.
However, today it might have changed things because the more that you sit across from Conor at these press conferences, the more he says stuff that maybe you're sensitive about and maybe you don't like. Yeah, I can see it getting under Nate's skin for sure. But is it going to affect the fight? I don't think so, because the Diaz brothers, I think, thrive on this kind of thing, and this kind of adversity and these kind of confrontations. This is what they do. This is what they've done in their entire lives, and Nate's been doing this for a really long time, and I don't see it affecting him at all in the fight.
Very rarely have opponents given them a piece of their own medicine, talk back to them, flip them off, things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds to that. But I do think this is very personal. And if you just look at that post-fight interview with Joe Rogan in December, he's saying that you're stealing everything that I worked for. You're the one getting $1 million checks, and I'm sitting here on 20 and 20 or whatever. You don't think that's personal to him? You don't think he's upset about that?
I think that what he said yesterday, what Nate said yesterday about that, was that he blames the UFC and the media more for that than he blames Conor for that. He doesn't begrudge Conor for that. I don't think that there's any animosity more than Conor is trying to get under Nate's skin, and maybe it's working a little bit this week. And I think that's why. I mean, listen, where Nate and Nick come from, if you say and you do the things that Conor just did to them, there's gonna be a fight. There's gonna be an effing fight. They're gonna throw down with you.
That wasn't
right
a
there.
tap. Right?
No,
that was a strong. Right now, he's got to be annoyed.
Punch. It was almost a punch. Yeah, he's 100%. He's annoyed right now. Was there any animosity before this? Not really. But yeah, when you do what Conor has done the last few days since last week, it was a physical affront today. You're damn right. Nate's gonna want to fight him. Of course, that's what they do. They've gotten into fights before a lot. This is what they do. I'm not talking about in the octagon. I'm talking about outside the octagon with other fighters. This happens a lot. If you do something like that, if you challenge their pride, they're gonna do something about it. That's just who they are, and that's fine.
And they probably won't admit it, but credit to the UFC brass for watching the MMA Hour on Monday and stealing our idea of doing this press conference because, I mean, let's be honest, this wasn't on the schedule. And then, oh, wow, 12 hours later, it is on the schedule. And they just got a few more pay-per-view buys because of the kerfuffle. I mean, this all worked out very well for the UFC, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. You were right. I mean, you were on the ball when we were talking on Monday on the show about the press conference. Even though selfishly I like the scrum better, how can you not do a press conference? How can you not put these guys back out?
I heard this live on FS1. I mean, everyone's upping their game here.
It's amazing how much interest this has now compared to what it was. No disrespect to Rafael dos Anjos, he's an elite fighter. He's a fantastic fighter, but Nate Diaz being in that spot and saying stuff back to Conor, I'm not sure if Dos Anjos would have done that. And I think Nate Diaz is a bigger name. He's got a bigger fan base. It's a bigger fight now. There's no rankings implications. There's no title on the line, but it's absolutely a bigger fight now in terms of interest.
Let's end on this because we still have our preview video coming out Friday night, so we don't want to give away too much here. And, of course, we have all our other coverage that you can enjoy on the site or on our YouTube channel. But give fans at home a sense of the scene right now. You were at UFC 189 back in July. I was at 189, 194. You were at the scene last week in Torrance. Right. And it has been said that, you know, you're asking for a lot out of these Irish fans if you keep asking them to come to Las Vegas every 3-4 months. What's the scene? It's Thursday, so this kind of feels like the calm before the storm. You really get a better sense on Friday. But as we stand here today, Thursday afternoon in Las Vegas, what do you make of the whole scene building up to this fight?
It's subdued. As far as the fans in attendance here, it's somewhat subdued. There's not a huge Irish contingent here yet. And I won't say they're not coming because, as you said, we've seen before, some of them don't arrive until Friday for weigh-ins. And that's what happened at UFC 194 as well, where there wasn't a lot of Irish people here all week, and then all of a sudden on Friday they were serenading Holly Holm at weigh-in. So I'm still giving them time, but it's a far flight. It's expensive. Vegas is not cheap to get a hotel room. It's a lot to ask these Irish fans to continue coming here for McGregor. And this is the third time that he's fought since July here. So these are long flights. You can't keep asking. I mean, how many Irish fans were here in July? There were literally thousands. It almost felt like half the arena. They were partying outside in the casino in the MGM Grand. I don't expect that, but I don't see that. It's not whatever. I mean, that's just how it is. They're not suffering financially. They're doing fine. The gate's still going to be great. Pay-per-view, buys maybe bigger than the last two fights. So, hey, this is just where we're at right now.
Personally, I love this calm before the storm. There's nothing like it. It is so unique, very much unique to this sport, maybe boxing as well, but you got to love everything that's been building up. An eventful day for the UFC just got a whole lot more interesting. As always, MMAfighting.com, the only place that you really need to go to get your typical UFC Fight Week coverage. So keep it locked right here. Finally, he agrees with me on something. Keep it locked right here. We have all the coverage that you need and want from UFC 196, and of course, we'll be back Friday as well. Tons of stuff from Thursday's Media Day, so check out our site and our YouTube channel as well. For now, we'll say goodbye. That is Marc. I am Ariel. Stay with us. Plenty more to come from Las Vegas.